growth, and he's obviously still in love with Lucy, and she's someone that needs and wants certain things that he can't provide. And
Hollywood, a world built on lights, illusions, shifting alliances, and carefully curated appearances, has witnessed countless romances that burned brightly for a moment before vanishing into ashes, secret marriages revealed through grainy paparazzi shots, sudden divorces announced in curt press statements, and love stories that seemed almost scripted to thrill audiences before inevitably collapsing under the weight of scrutiny. But even in such a landscape of spectacle and scandal, never had there been a moment that stunned both the media and millions of fans, quite like the revelation that SamHeughan, the Scottish star of Outlander whose magnetic screen presence and chiseled charisma had long earned him admiration far beyond the borders of his homeland, was not preparing to marry Dakota Johnson, as had been whispered, speculated, and debated in endless columns, forums, and talk shows for years, but was in fact preparing to walk down the aisle with Caitriona Balfe, his longtime co-star and confidant, the woman who had been by his side for over a decade, shaping not only his professional journey but also his private world, their bond finally finding expression in the form of marriage, a decision that at once silenced rumors, shocked the skeptical, vindicated the devoted, and rewrote the narrative that tabloids had stubbornly spun for years. For while Dakota Johnson, with her luminous presence, Hollywood lineage, and independent flair, had become a central figure in the gossip surrounding Sam, appearing beside him in stolen paparazzi frames, sparking countless speculative headlines such as Dakota, Sam's new woman, or Heughan's secret romance with Johnson. The truth was that Sam had remained remarkably silent, never once offering confirmation, never once playing into the frenzy. Instead, allowing the press and public to weave their own fantastical stories while he quietly tended to something far deeper, the invisible yet undeniable bond he shared with Caitriona, a connection that had been born in the earliest days of Outlander, when the two of them were thrust into the monumental challenge of carrying a sweeping historical drama on their shoulders, and found, in the long days of shooting and the even longer nights of preparation, not merely a colleague or co-star, but a kindred spirit, a partner who could sense unspoken feelings, who could soothe anxieties with nothing more than the brush of a hand on a shoulder, as Caitriona so often did for Sam before emotionally demanding scenes, her touch calming the storm within him, just as Sam, in turn, became her anchor, the one who would place a steaming cup of tea into her hands when exhaustion weighed her down, and accompany it with an encouraging smile that seemed to transfer energy and strength back into her. And this dance of giving and receiving, of unspoken reassurance and effortless harmony, became the heartbeat of their working lives, yet also something more elusive, more intimate, though for years it was wrapped in the safety of the label best friends, a phrase that satisfied the cautious, though to those watching closely, the glances, the ease, the laughter that came too freely, and the comfort that seemed too instinctual suggested something far beyond the ordinary boundaries of friendship. And so while Dakota's presence in Sam's orbit brought novelty and the spark of external fascination, particularly when the two were photographed at an Oscar after-party, glasses of wine in hand, leaning close in conversation that the paparazzi lenses froze into images of undeniable chemistry, fueling an inferno of speculation that spread across tabloids like wildfire, the whispers of Sam's new girlfriend, echoing louder each week. The underlying truth was never spoken, for Sam, with a mixture of Scottish reserve and personal conviction, chose silence, refusing to let gossip dictate his story, though eventually, in a London interview, pressed with the blunt question, "Sam, are you really dating Dakota Johnson?" he gave a half-smile that carried more weight than words and replied, "Dakota is a great friend, but my heart belongs elsewhere." A statement that became the spark for yet another storm, with journalists scrambling to decipher what elsewhere meant, many concluding that the only possible destination for such loyalty was Caitriona, who, though married to Tony McGill, could never quite conceal, whenever she stood beside Sam, the glimmer in her eyes that betrayed something more than collegial fondness, something that lingered like unfinished poetry between them. And indeed, the rumors multiplied when one night, cameras caught Caitriona leaving Sam's home in Scotland at midnight, the headlines exploding with insinuations that an old flame had reignited, that perhaps love never dies but merely waits for its moment to step into the light. And as months passed, what had once been speculation began to take on the density of truth, culminating in early 2025 when Sam, weary of the endless chatter, weary of having his silence twisted into a canvas for everyone else's narratives, took to Instagram and posted a simple, understated status. "It's time to end all the rumors," words that carried the weight of finality, an announcement that broke through the noise with startling clarity, and what followed confirmed that the story was never Dakota's, however luminous she may have been, but Caitriona's. For Sam revealed that the woman he was marrying was none other than the one who had walked beside him through the labyrinth of fame, pressure, and performance for more than a decade. The co-star with whom he had built not only unforgettable scenes, but also an invisible tapestry of shared moments, mutual understanding, and resilient devotion. And the reaction was immediate, electric, a global outcry of shock, joy, and disbelief, as fans who had shipped them for years felt vindicated, as skeptics who had dismissed their closeness as mere professionalism were forced to reevaluate, as the media scrambled to rewrite the narrative they had misdirected for years, and as Hollywood itself, jaded by countless temporary romances, suddenly found itself in awe of a love story that had been quietly real all along, one that had not needed constant photographs or staged outings to prove its legitimacy, but had flourished quietly, sustained by small gestures, long silences, and the kind of trust that very few in their world ever managed to build. And so, when the wedding day came, it was not merely a ceremony, but a culmination, a declaration that while rumors may dominate headlines, truth will always reveal itself. And in Sam and Caitriona's vows, spoken not as actors reciting lines, but as souls promising to continue the story they had been writing together for years, there was a poignancy that could not be manufactured, a sense that even in the most artificial of industries, something authentic, rare, and enduring had taken root and blossomed into a union that the world, however surprised, could not help but admire. And in the years to come, their marriage would be remembered not simply as the ending of rumors or the beginning of a new chapter, but as proof that sometimes the greatest love stories are not those shouted from the rooftops, but those lived quietly, consistently, and truthfully until the day they no longer need to hide, for they are strong enough to stand in the light of the world and declare themselves.
It was hard for me to face, actually, and unexpected, and it definitely...
"I choose the truth, and the truth is love," were the words that SamHeughan finally chose to accompany the photograph that changed everything, an image of him and Caitriona Balfe hand in hand on a quiet beach at sunset, the sky awash with golden fire, as if the heavens themselves had decided to bless their revelation. And in that single gesture, the world paused, fans held their breath, media outlets scrambled, and for once the truth cut through years of speculation, because just a week later came the official announcement that the Outlander star was not entangled in the endless rumors of Dakota Johnson, but was, in fact, marrying the woman with whom he had shared over a decade of companionship, trust, artistry, and unspoken tenderness. Caitriona, his co-star, his confidant, his quiet anchor. The wedding itself was cloaked in secrecy, held within the ancient walls of a Scottish castle that had stood for centuries amidst rolling hills and mists, as if chosen not merely for grandeur, but because the history embedded in its stones matched the timelessness of their bond. Invitations went only to family and closest friends, those who had truly witnessed the depth of their connection rather than read it through the distorted lens of tabloids. And yet news of the event inevitably leaked, igniting a global frenzy. Reporters camped outside the gates, drones hummed in distant skies, and social media buzzed with anticipation. Inside, however, away from the chaos, the moment unfolded with serene simplicity. Caitriona walking down the aisle in a gown of understated elegance, white silk and lace flowing like water, her eyes glistening not with stage lights but with emotion, while Sam, dressed in formal Highland attire, stood waiting with eyes that spoke 1,000 unsaid promises, his lips trembling into a smile that betrayed both nerves and boundless joy. When their vows were exchanged, time itself seemed to still, and the world beyond those castle walls exploded with reaction. For here was the culmination of years of whispers, denials, and endless speculation, all condensed into 2 words spoken with trembling voices: "I do." Words that were not simply a legal affirmation but the seal of fate, the fulfillment of what so many had sensed but few had dared to hope would one day step out of shadows into the full light of truth. Naturally, attention turned towards Dakota Johnson, the woman who had been at the center of the swirling rumors for so long, and when the press cornered her in Los Angeles, waiting to record every flicker of her expression, she surprised them not with scandal but with grace, smiling calmly and saying, "Sam is a friend. I am happy for him. Everyone deserves to be happy. And if it is Caitriona, then I believe they will make the most beautiful love story in Hollywood." In those few words, she not only silenced the last lingering doubts, but closed a chapter that had spun wildly out of proportion, restoring dignity to herself and clarity to the narrative, while fans, freed from confusion, erupted in jubilation. On Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and beyond, millions shared their exhilaration. Finally, Jamie and Claire, not only on screen but in life, one wrote, "I've waited 10 years for this moment, and it feels like the best ending to Outlander itself," posted another. The hashtag Sam and Cat wedding surged to global trending status, uniting fans from Edinburgh to Los Angeles, from Rome to Tokyo, in collective celebration. But even this digital storm paled in comparison to what happened during the ceremony itself, for in a move few expected, a special portion of their vows was broadcast live to a global audience, an act of both generosity and symbolism, a gift to the millions whose devotion had sustained their journey for years. Holding Caitriona's hand with a grip that trembled yet held fast, Sam spoke through tears. "I've been through a lot of rumors, a lot of doubts, but my heart has never wavered. I knew from the first day I met you that you were my destiny." His words broke the dam of emotion not only for fans watching but for Caitriona herself, who, overcome, answered through sobs, "I used to think we were just co-stars, nothing more than performers in a story, but over the years I realized co-stars can change, scripts can change, worlds can change, but you don't. You are the person I want to be with for the rest of my life." And in that exchange, what had begun as fiction became fused with reality. What Diana Gabaldon had imagined in her novels leapt from page to life, for as Diana herself, present at the celebration, later said with emotion, "I created Jamie and Claire with words, but it was Sam and Caitriona who made them live, not only on screen but in their own truth. And tonight they gave us all a story greater than any I could ever write." The evening spilled into a reception illuminated not by blinding flashbulbs, but by the soft glow of thousands of candles, shimmering reflections against castle stone, casting an atmosphere of intimacy and warmth that contrasted sharply with the frenzy outside the gates. Friends and colleagues raised their glasses in heartfelt toasts, laughter and tears blending into a chorus of joy, while music, both traditional Scottish pipes and gentle strings, wove through the halls, binding together cultures and histories in the same way their love bound work and life. Yet for all the spectacle, the aftermath was telling. The very next day, front pages from CNN to the BBC to the Hollywood Reporter declared it the most shocking wedding of 2025, a union that had rewritten Hollywood's expectations and left even jaded observers stunned. But for Sam and Caitriona, life beyond the castle was not meant to be about headlines but about peace. In a handwritten letter posted a week later, written in ink that carried the intimacy of authenticity, they addressed their fans directly. "We know this news comes as a surprise to many, but love never goes according to plan. It just goes according to the heart. Thank you for always being there for us. Now we start a new chapter. No longer Jamie and Claire, but Sam and Caitriona." Those lines resonated deeply, not only because they marked an end to confusion, but because they expressed the rare humility of two people who recognized that their private joy had become, by the very nature of their fame, a shared story for millions. And so, While the media continued to circle, probing for stories, searching for cracks, Sam and Caitriona quietly chose a different rhythm, purchasing a small home in the Scottish Highlands, a stone cottage embraced by green hills and winds that carried the scent of heather, a retreat that seemed less like an escape and more like a return to essence. There, mornings began not with scripts or schedules, but with Sam brewing coffee as sunlight streamed gently through the windows, while Caitriona curled with a book in hand, her hair falling naturally across her shoulders, a scene of ordinary intimacy that mattered far more than any premiere. Afternoons often found them walking together across meadows, the wide expanse of highland skies above, pausing to watch sunsets sink into golden horizons, and evenings ended not in parties, but in the glow of firelight, their laughter echoing softly into the night. For them, happiness did not require the limelight, for love itself was the brightest thing, and in that realization lay the true miracle of their story, that after years of speculation, after decades of roles and scripts, after countless moments where fiction blurred with reality, they chose not spectacle but sincerity, not